All right, welcome back to the Ottawa studios of Inside My Canoe Head. I am your host, Dr. D. Today, we are going to talk about the labor market and preparedness. Not something regularly heard, but something critically important, because you know what? An income is really cool. So sit back, grab yourself your favorite beverage. Let's get at her. It is a wild and rainy day here in the nation's capital in Canada, but that's just the remnants of the hurricane that smoked southern United States. We feel for everybody down there who took a punch upside the head, and for all of you who had a robust, incredible preparedness plan, you enacted it, rocked a credible life. You're already back up and running. Very little interruption. Congratulations. Those of you who suffered significantly and are running around trying to figure stuff out, you need to listen to the podcast. Jump over to insidemycanoehead.ca. Follow us. We've got all the information you need to build that preparedness plan, to adopt a prepared life, and take control of your outcomes. It's up to you. No one else is coming to help. And if you had a significant loss in that hurricane, you're going to understand that all too clear, as the people in Jasper, Alberta have realized if their third of the town that burned was where their house was, or for the Fort McMurray wildfires, the wildfires in Hammond Plains, Nova Scotia, the fires in California, the floods in Central America, and tornado-hit cities, you very quickly realize when you spend time listening to the stories of people impacted significantly by disasters that other than the immediate sandwich and warm blanket they're handed, very, very quickly, they are absolutely 100% on their own. So if you're going to be on your own, my friends, it's far better for you to be on your own, executing a well-understood, well-educated, and informed plan that you created for you and those you love, and rocking an incredible recovery when others are not. So today, the labor market is really important, right? Because we know that the labor market, the economy often emits mixed signals. Information points to a trend in one direction, but outcomes seem to mirror something different, or your experience. At times, significant changes are sectorial in nature, but not occurring in the wider system. For example, we can see massive layoffs in tech or massive layoffs in the financial sector, but the manufacturing sector is just chugging along wonderfully. But for all of the most astute followers, it seems to be a bit of a confusing set of unrelated events, right? Unless you're an absolute expert and you spend your part-time buried in the state of the economy, in the labor market. What is clear, though, is that some turns in the economic system do impact you. They are potentially harmful, and they need to be understood. We know that preparedness embraces the whole of person, your entire life, not as a lens of worry or fraught, and I'm running around full of anxiety and stress all day about Chicken Little falling on my head, but it's a perspective, right? You have a goal. You have a plan. For example, that may be to be an artist through a very unique medium whose passion you fuel by working part-time as a barista. That's your life, that's your plan, and that's brilliant. And that's an incredible life to rock. Or you may be a veteran pursuing an entrepreneurial venture, funding it with a line of credit. You may be a single mother trying to raise a few kids in an economy that feels like you're on a freaking emotional roller coaster, right? We know that the first key to success in preparedness is accepting personal responsibility, right? Nothing moves forward until you decide that while the outside world most certainly can influence and impact your life, it is ultimately up to you to seek success. Win or lose, it will be your fault. The next is to have a plan. Right? A goal that you're working towards. It could be a painter selling enough to pursue it full time or learning a new skill. Without an idea where you're headed, you'll fall victim to everything and a rudderless ship in the storm. And we talk about strategy a lot here in the podcast, and we're adding a strategy module to our signature course, Adopt a Prepared Life. You can jump over to preparednesslabs.ca and check that out. The whole idea is that if you are not following a plan, like if you're not chasing something in life, then you're just meandering through. And we used to call them oxygen thieves in the Army. You just see people that are just wandering around, banging into things, getting in the way of everybody who's trying to accomplish something. Everybody's accomplishing something. That doesn't mean you're stepping on other people. That doesn't mean you're trying to take resources from someone else. Doesn't mean you're trying to squash the opposition. It means you have an intent and a purpose, and you've designed the intent and a purpose. And when I talk about that artist, I am amazed. I have near zero creative skills, right? I couldn't paint the inside of a barn to save my life, right? No, I'm not a creative person, but there are some freaking brilliant people out there who have incredible abilities as an artist, and all they want to do is be an artist. Now, as they're starting, as they're emerging, they understand that's not paying the bills, right? So they got to get a job. They work usually a minimum wage job so that they can concentrate all their spare time on their thing. But they have a goal. And I use a basic phrase that I taught my kids when they were younger, is that you have to have a reason to swing your legs out of bed in the morning. It's that simple. Not because you have to, not because you're telling you. And listen, I spent 28 years in the Army, and I met a whole lot of people who hated it. But because they had trapped themselves in a life they couldn't get out of, they had no choice but to earn a good income to be able to pay their way doing something they absolutely hated. But what they never did, almost to a person, what they never did is sit down and craft a strategy going, yeah, I don't like what I do. I can't quit it right now because I've got a family to support. I got a mortgage to pay. I get it, right? But I want to do something different. So how do I make that happen? First, what it is that I'd like to do, and then how do I get there? What skill sets do I need? What are the opportunities? What is the market telling me right now about labor opportunities in the area I want to go to? That's strategic thinking. It's about conceptual idea design while you're going through the machinations of being able to pay your freaking bills, right? Everybody needs an income. This is the importance of the labor market, right? You are impacted by the labor market, right? The availability of employment in the sub-market that you've chosen matters. If you think about the labor market, it is one place where everybody shows up who has a skill set or a knowledge, and they exchange that for a value that you and the other person agree to. And there are several different ways. We have minimum wage, which is generally geared towards unskilled. And when I mean unskilled work, I don't mean dumb people. I don't mean unintelligent people. Unskilled work means work that you can learn on the job that doesn't require a significant education investment to either get the job or maintain the job, right? So, yeah, there are people in unskilled work who have a great set of skills, but it's still considered unskilled work because it's learn on the job and learn as you go, right? A general laborer on a construction site is unskilled labor. They may have done it for 10 years and they know everything and they can do it inside and out, but they're still unskilled labor. The electrician on the job site is skilled labor because they have an education component, a regulatory component, and they have to maintain standards. Difference between skilled and unskilled. It's not about intelligence, etc. But depending on what market you're in, if you're in the minimum wage market, if you work at or near minimum wage, right, you have the issue of large scale surges in the number of people available for work, right? Because the thing about unskilled labor is it's always required, right? Some unskilled labor is recession proof. It really is. I mean, people will go to McDonald's whether they have the money or not. People will go to Walmart whether they have the money or not. And a lot of people go down market, as the saying is in economics. So you might have shopped at a higher end store, but as you go down market, some people are just intelligent and shop at Walmart anyhow and save their money to do other things with. But the point being is that if you're in the unskilled market, there is a surge in immigration that is happening in some Western countries, that it's causing a surge in the number of people available to work in unskilled labor. When that happens, it puts a downward pressure on wages, which means there is no requirement or no motivation for the government to raise minimum wage or for the company to consider raising their wages, because for every employee that you have working in the unskilled environment, there's probably 3 or 4 that are willing to take the job, right? If you think about pre-pandemic or in the midst of the pandemic, we had a labor shortage, right? Especially even in the beginnings of the emergence from the pandemic, we had a significant labor shortage, which meant you had an upward pressure on wages. Less people looking for the same amount of jobs means that people can demand higher wages. So you started to see wages go up and benefits go up. But as soon as you have large numbers of unskilled labor, that puts the pressure down. That can be a political move. It can be an economic move. Immigration is absolutely, especially for the country I'm in, Canada, immigration is absolutely necessary, right? We don't have enough babies, for lack of a better term. The demographics of this country, we're not producing enough young people to replace the workforce. So we need immigration. Management of immigration is very important. And I don't care what your political stripe is. We have a surge in population in Canada now that has put downward pressure on wages in just the unskilled market. So now if we move over to the gig economy, right? So the gig economy is what emerged in the tech sector really in the early 2000s. So the gig economy is where you exchange your labor for work on a short-term basis, right? You're not a salaried employee. You don't have shifts at a job. You have a skill set, and you exchange that skill set for a fee for a one-time thing. Think Uber, Lyft, DoorDash. Think people who have started digital marketing firms on their own. Think about people who offer website refinement services, SEO services, all these different tech type of ideas or marketing, copywriting services, etc. is I'm a copywriter. I'm going to charge you, $1,000 to do your copywriting for an ad campaign that you have. You're going to pay me the $1,000. I'm going to do the work for you, and then there's nothing else between us. Like there's no benefits. There's no future guaranteed work. I have to go out and sell myself again. This is the new dream, right? This is the emerging new American dream, if you want to call it. The American dream of the past used to be a guaranteed salary. Some member of the family had a full-time salary job that had pension and benefits that was sufficient enough to support the entire family. That was the old American dream. The new American dream is having the ability to bounce all around the workforce and having multiple incomes, right? And a lot of people haven't figured that out. And so they're in a gig economy and they're crying out loud and complaining about the old American dream doesn't exist anymore. And that's gone, right? It's not coming back. The gig economy has replaced it. So if you don't understand the labor market, right, you're going to be continually demanding something that no longer exists as a market standard. Now, it does exist in some places, mostly in the public sector, but it's not the market standard. And the market standard is now the gig economy. So understanding that is really important, right? So if your income is now bouncy, as I like to refer to it, in other words, you don't have a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks. You just don't, right? This month you make 10 grand, next month you make 1. That's the gig economy. You have to be able to navigate that. And the last one is skilled labor, right? The other end of the curve, where you have that electrician on the site, whether you have an accountant, whether you're a lawyer. Most of this is profession or professional standards where you have a set of skills that are required to be maintained to get employment. They're in a lot of trouble right now. A lot of high-skilled labor, or what used to be referred to as white-collar labor, is basically under significant pressure, and the layoffs are excessive. And one of the aspects of this is remote work. So a lot of people demanded after the pandemic that the remote work that was a requirement of the pandemic, not an employer's decision, but a requirement of the situation imposed on us by the pandemic, people went off and did this. And now you're looking at a situation where companies are saying, okay, we're preferring a return to work. right? Because we understand that we want people back in the office. We want people back in the position. It's a command and control thing, right? And I'm saying in general, there is a movement towards this. I was at a great presentation by a recruiter last month, and this is a prominent recruiter here in Ottawa, Ontario. And it recruits for a lot of top companies. Like, you got to remember, we're a nation's capital, city of 1 million people. We have a headquarters of a lot of top companies. They're actually searching to replace remote workers only for the purpose that they're remote. Like, the people are doing good jobs. They're good employees, but they're steadfast in their demand to work from home. They've enjoyed it. They like the lifestyle. This is what they want, even though it's only a blip. Remember, we've only been doing this for 4 years or less than 4. That's it. Remote work has only been a really big thing for 4 years in several hundred years of employment, right? So it's not the new normal. It's a blip. And companies, on average, not all, but on average, are returning to in-person work. So this recruiter's saying, we're having a lot of layoffs in the tech sector and in the finance sector specifically. So you have a lot of well-skilled people being laid off, these people that demanded remote work. And so people in a company that are saying, I keep doing this company, I don't want to return, I love remote work, maybe I'll come in a day a week, that's it, maybe we can negotiate this. The company is saying, fine. But what they're actually doing in the background is they're finding your replacement. They're hiring a recruiting firm to quietly find the replacement without putting your job, because you get a bit nervous when you see your job on a job posting from your company, right? Oh no, they're doing it with recruiters and professional applicant pools, and they're interviewing people right now to replace you because you demand to be remote. When you look at the labor market and you see that there is an excess availability of people, that the labor market is trending downward in demand in your sector, you are not in a position to make certain demands of the employer, right? Your leverage, as we say in the labor market, will ebb and flow as the labor market does. As people emerging from the pandemic had the ability to champion remote work, because that was the standard, because there was a shortage in high-skilled labor, because people were hiring like crazy as the economy was taking off post-pandemic, people were in a position to demand a standard. They're not in a position to demand that standard now, and a good number of them are not looking and seeking and identifying the signals in the labor market. And the end result of that is they're putting themselves and their family in a very dangerous position of stomping their feet and demanding remote work because I can be as productive, I can do what I want. That's great. Nobody's asking you. The employer wants people back in the office. The employer will get people back in the office. That doesn't mean it has to be you, because in the skilled workforce, that pool is growing. So if you demand and you're a top-notch employee, you very well may find yourself laid off simply because of your demand for remote work. This could ebb the other way, but right now we're looking at whether the economy goes into a formal recession or not. We can debate till the cow's end. The point of this podcast is to understand that you have a responsibility to know your labor market sector, to understand what is going on and what are the indicators in the portion of the labor market to which you belong and the portion of the labor market to which you intend to go. If you have a strategy that you're employing to move to a new labor market, to move to a new position, a new employment, a new type of job. So you got a goal or something. That's fantastic. The last point that you really need to zero in on is getting fired, right? So we've talked about this at length of this podcast. We've got episodes in season 7, 8, and 9 all about what to do when you're fired. And it's one of our trifecta of preparedness plans that's in our book and our Adopt a Prepared Life course. It's about when you think about the spectrum of things that could happen to you and your family. There's hundreds. There's hundreds of possible things that could happen, and it is illogical for you to consider in any way, shape, or form to have a preparedness plan for every one of those. You'd just be buried under thought processes and work, and it would be pointless and actual counterintuitive to preparedness. So we've placed everything on a spectrum, right? So we're going to get you in your trifecta of preparedness plan. The first one is to get ready for the most likely but least impactful. And at the other end of the spectrum, we're going to get you ready for the high impact, low probability event. And those are the two ends of the spectrum. So if you've got a really robust personal and family preparedness plan to deal with those two ends of the spectrum, you are more than likely going to be able to cover absolutely anything that happens in between. The trifecta of preparedness plans takes you the step. And this is the preparedness plan that opens up your eyes to realizing that preparedness is far more than just natural disasters and that type of thing, right? And it's what is your plan when you get fired, right? You are a great employee. And just look at the pandemic. It offers a perfect example, right? We had wonderful people working for great companies, doing great work, who got fired on the spot. How many people were ready? How many people had a plan? How many people had a strategy on exactly what they intend to do when they're fired, right? Very few people think that way, right? It's Friday, it's August 9th. You're all sitting in your cubicles, you're doing whatever, you're going off for the weekend, right? You're going to come back on Monday. You're going to show up Monday morning, and you may be met at the doors by HR and security and brought into a side room, given your termination papers. There's a banker's box there with your personal ID, and you are locked out. Or if you're a digital gig employee, you're asked to jump onto a Zoom call, and you quickly realize that all of your accounts have been locked out, but you've been given a Zoom invite. Guess what? You're about to be fired, right? You're going to have your pity party, and I talk about this all the time. You're going to have your one-day pity party and go after it, right? Have your pity party, get your bottle of wine, pound the walls, punch the whatever it is you want to do. But the next day, you need to have a well-crafted pivot plan. A plan that you created. What do I intend to do when I get fired? Because everybody leaves their job, right? You're going to die, you're going to quit, you're going to retire, or you're going to get fired. Everybody will leave the job they're in right now. It doesn't matter, right? It will end. So why not have a plan so it ends abruptly beyond your control, but you're headed in a direction that you thought of, right? So for example, you're a gig employee working right now for a tech startup or a stable tech company. You're doing remote work, or you're doing part-time in and out of the office. You're good at what you do. You're in a field. You get fired, right? Do you intend to seek additional work in that field? Again, labor market intelligence. You need to know what's going on, because if you are being fired alongside a whole crapload of digital marketers within the gig space, going out and trying to get digital marketing work is pointless, because if everybody's firing a good portion of their digital marketing staff in an economic downturn, trying to go get work as a digital marketer is, it's pointless, right? You're just going to run your head against the wall. Hi, I'm available to work, looking for opportunities in blah, blah, blah. And you see this on LinkedIn all the time. I'm very prevalent on LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn 6 days a week, right? Follow me over on LinkedIn, by the way, Jeff Donaldson, comma, PhD. It's really, really interesting, because people who are open to work, most of them don't have a freaking idea or a strategy, right? Oh, I'm available to work in project management, marketing, strategy, design, leadership. And I'm like, really? So you can do absolutely anything on the face of this earth. And then you come across somebody who says, I'm open to work. I'm looking to do this very specific thing. And that's their pivot plan, right? So in the background, what they've done is decided, when I get fired, this is what I intend to do. I'm going to shift over. I'm going to do this kind of work. Why? Number one, because it's a different labor market, right? And it is likely to not be affected by the same variables that cause mine to go down, right? So if I'm in digital marketing, right, you can't go over and do copywriting, because copywriting is a function of marketing, right? I'm going to go from digital marketing to be a copywriter. Well, you're in the same darn pool, right? So you've got to switch to a different. Now, it doesn't mean you have to become a plumber. It doesn't mean you have to become a carpenter. It means that what your pivot plan to is, what your alternate next source of income is going to be, has to be outside of the same labor market influences as your current employment. So you determine what that is, right? Fabulous. You get after it. You figure out, okay, what is it that I need? What skill set, what knowledge, what qualifications do I need to be successful in this market? Okay, how do I get those? Guess what? Unless it's an actual written certification, you get it off YouTube free of charge. I'm dead serious. You know, whether you like Elon Musk or not, he says college is useless, training is useless, right? And I'm a university professor. There are some jobs or professions, let's call them that require formal degrees, right? But the vast majority of what you want, what you need to know and what you'd like to know is available free of charge on YouTube. MIT puts a bunch of their courses out there. You could grab a masterclass subscription for a couple $100 for a year. Like, there is all kinds of ways to earn that skill in your pivot. How long is it going to take you to get up and running in that new job? Say it's a month, right? So I get fired as a digital marketer, and my side gig is a bookkeeper. That's the one that I want to do. I want to learn over it and do bookkeeping. I want to do online QuickBooks accounts, right? QuickBooks, if you don't know it, is a brilliant program. And some people start wonderful gig economies where they become an expert in QuickBooks and everything about it in different countries, and they're able to do bookkeeping on the side far cheaper for a company than having to hire an actual full-time bookkeeper, right? So that's your gig. So what do I need to know? How do I learn? Well, you can take courses online, or you can learn by watching QuickBooks. You can jump into it. You can do everything you can so you're up and ready. How long will that take you to launch your company? Set it up and get it up and running, right? Some people would say have it up and running anyhow. That's a different podcast. I'm going to get to it about the value of having your own company. But say you're going from a digital marketer to a bookkeeper. You're ready to go. So every once in a while, you're keeping up with what's going on in the bookkeeping world. You're keeping up with what's going on in the digital marketing world. So when you get fired as a digital marketer for doing nothing wrong, you just got resized or downsized or called. It's life, man. It happened to you. You get fired. 48 hours later, your company's ad is up for bookkeeping services. Wow. There you are. You were ready to go. You didn't want to get fired as a digital marketer. You probably knew with the ebbs and flows of the nature of the gig economy that it was going to come. You were ready to go. And 48 hours later, you are out there advertising and seeking your first set of clients to do bookkeeping. What are your digital marketer friends doing? Their pity parties are carrying on. They are out there on LinkedIn with little open to work badges trying desperately to get the next digital marketing gig, right? They are. I've seen them. Or they're turning around saying, I did digital marketing, so I now can do corporate strategic design. I'm like, what? What has that got to do with it? And it's not that maybe that is their gig, and that's perfectly fine. But when you put out, I am capable of working in any one of these 27 environments. And oh, by the way, I want remote work, right? As soon as you throw in, I'm capable of doing these 17 things and I want to work remotely, most recruiters are just going to bypass that, right? Because as soon as you start making demands to work remotely in a tight labor market, you're setting yourself up for absolute failure. So hopefully this lesson today, this little episode, we talked about labor market intelligence and the value of understanding the labor market proved useful to you, right? Drop us a line at jeff@preparednesslabs.ca. Drop over to our website, www.insidemycanoehead. Tell us what you think, right? And I'm going to end with this one note. Rightfully so, I've been called out a little bit about my political bias. I have it. It exists. I do my best to not have it come out on the podcast, but there's been more than one individual who has reached out and made a line about something along the lines of be careful about polluting your preparedness message with political ideology. And I will say, I acknowledge it. I thank you for that, and I will continue to do my best, but I do appreciate it. So anything, you've got points, give it to me straight, right up, not a problem. Welcome to the new course enrollees over at Adopt to Prepare Life course. We're going to get that, get some things fired up and running in that very shortly. You'll be very excited. Stick with us, stay with us. Inside My Canoe Head is your free, and always will be free, best source of preparedness information that is evidence-based, non-apocalyptic for rational people. If you want to protect your life and continue to chase your dreams, you found the right place. Stick with us. We ask you to do one thing and one thing only. That's to tell a friend about this podcast. We don't make any money. We don't sell advertisement. We just want to spread the word. Take care. Stay safe.